What if the number on your bank screen was never a verdict, only a reflection? What if money in its truest form has never been solid, never fixed, never scarce, only obedient? Lean into this moment. Feel the quiet shock of it. Because the first truth of financial freedom is this: money is not a substance. It is a shadow, and shadows do not lead, they follow. You were taught, slowly, subtly, relentlessly, that wealth lives outside you, that liquid wealth must be chased, that massive capital belongs to distant figures, hidden behind gates, surnames, or systems you were not born into. This belief was never innocent. It was conditioning. Scarcity is not a market condition. Scarcity is an identity. Watch how the mind trained in scarcity behaves. It scans prices like threats. It measures life in trade-offs. It treats money as something that can vanish, betray, abandon, and so it must constantly be monitored, feared, defended against. But here's the fracture in that illusion. Money does not respond to effort. It responds to position. A man standing in the desert and a man standing on fertile land do not work harder for rain. They occupy different territory. Wealth is no different. The moment you believe money is limited, you place yourself outside its flow. You become a visitor begging entry, instead of the owner surveying land. Debt, then, becomes proof, not of lack, but of misidentification. Debt only exists to the one who believes they must earn permission to exist comfortably in the world. Pause here, let that sentence echo. Debt survives because the mind insists that money precedes being, that you must first acquire before you can relax, before you can choose, before you can breathe. But financial power is not acquired, it is assumed. Look at the language of markets. Capital moves toward confidence. Money clusters around certainty. Liquidity follows clarity. Markets do not reward desperation, they punish it. So when you say, "I need more money," what you are truly declaring is, "I am not the kind of person money stays with." This is not moral. It is mechanical. Money is a permission slip written by consciousness. And consciousness only honors the identity you repeatedly occupy. What if your bank account is not a wall, but a mirror? What if every number you see is simply the echo of an internal stance you have rehearsed for years? Here is the turning point. Scarcity dissolves the instant you stop asking how and start asking who. Who is the one checking balances with tension? Who is the one postponing life until someday? Who is the one negotiating with reality instead of commanding it? That identity must end, not through force, but through irrelevance. Because the wealthy identity does not argue with scarcity, it outgrows it. Imagine standing on land you own. You do not argue with fences. You do not debate borders. You walk freely because ownership is assumed. This is how absolute solvency feels internally. Not excitement, not mania, but calm jurisdiction. When you occupy the state of financial freedom, money reorganizes itself around you, not symbolically, literally. Opportunities appear because perception sharpens. Decisions accelerate because hesitation dissolves. Markets respond because your internal signal has changed. Scarcity was never the problem. Believing it was real, that was the trap. And once seen, it cannot survive. Feel the silence first, not the absence of sound, but the absence of pressure. There is a specific quiet that belongs only to those who live debt-free. It is not loud. It does not announce itself. It simply replaces noise that once felt permanent. The mind no longer hums with calculations, no background arithmetic, no constant forecasting of risk, no subtle flinch when notifications appear. This is the sensory reality of massive capital. Picture the interface of a high balance account, not the numbers. Feel the temperature of it. There is a coolness to financial certainty, a clean, unhurried clarity. You are not rushing. The screen does not intimidate you. You scroll without urgency because time is no longer weaponized against you. Financial power has weight. It presses downward, anchoring you. Not heavy like a burden, heavy like gravity. You are grounded. Notice how the body changes. Shoulders drop, breath deepens. Decisions stop carrying emotional residue. When wealth becomes your baseline, choice loses drama. You do not treat yourself, you select. Liquid wealth removes the friction between intention and action. If something aligns, it happens. If it doesn't, it dissolves without regret. This is not indulgence. This is efficiency. Debt creates static. Wealth creates signal. With absolute solvency, the future no longer feels like a threat to negotiate with. It becomes terrain to explore. Your calendar stretches. Your thinking expands laterally. You stop asking how much things cost. You start noticing what they return. Massive capital alters perception. You hear tone differently. You sense leverage in conversations. You recognize when others are rushed, pressured, misaligned. Markets become readable because you are no longer inside survival mode. The wealthy nervous system operates slower but sees faster. There is a distinct pleasure in knowing that nothing urgent can be taken from you. No call can destabilize you. No bill can ambush you. No expense can collapse your sense of self. This is the luxury no one advertises. The luxury of internal stillness. Your bank account becomes a landscape you own, not something you visit nervously, not something you avoid, but territory you understand intuitively. You know where the rivers flow. You know where reserves sit untouched. You know how much movement is required to shift outcomes. Wealth makes you patient, and patience makes you lethal in markets. This sensory world is not fantasy. It is a frequency, and frequencies are entered, not earned. The body must become familiar with safety, with surplus, with ease. When that familiarity locks in, money complies automatically. The most dangerous question ever taught was this: can I afford it? That sentence has ended more empires than recessions. The inner speech of the wealthy does not negotiate with desire. It assumes alignment. The dialogue changes quietly, subtly, irreversibly. Instead of, is this possible, the thought becomes, this belongs in my world. Instead of, what if it fails, the voice asks, how do I position this for dominance? Markets respond to internal language before external action. Your words shape posture. Posture shapes outcomes. The wealthy mind does not plead with money. It issues instructions. There is no emotional charge around spending or investing. Only calibration, only strategy. I move capital where it multiplies. I expect returns. I command flow. This is not arrogance. It is coherence. When the internal monologue stabilizes, the world reorganizes. People mirror certainty. Opportunities surface unannounced. Negotiations tilt in your favor before numbers appear. The wealthy do not wait for proof to feel secure. Security is assumed, so proof rushes to catch up. Notice the difference in tempo. Scarcity speaks quickly, nervously, repetitively. Wealth speaks once and expects compliance. The question disappears entirely, not replaced by optimism, but by ownership. It is mine is not a claim, it is a recognition. And once the inner speech locks into that register, debt has nowhere to attach. Scarcity has no hooks. Money has found its source again. This is how illusions end. Not through struggle, but through recognition. And recognition, once complete, never reverses. There is a moment, quiet, almost imperceptible, when time stops pressuring you about money. Not because the clock disappears, but because urgency does. This is the substate few ever name, yet every wealthy individual lives inside it. Financial time control. Scarcity experiences time as an enemy. Bills arrive on schedules, deadlines stalk the calendar, interest compounds against you. Every delay feels dangerous, but massive capital does something radical to time. It bends it. When liquid wealth is present, time stops demanding explanations. You no longer rush decisions because nothing is chasing you. You no longer panic over timing because timing obeys position. The poor ask, is now the right moment? The wealthy decide, this moment becomes right. Notice this carefully. Markets do not reward speed. They reward patience with leverage. The mind trained in scarcity believes delay equals loss. So it moves too early, exits too fast, commits before conditions mature. This is how capital leaks. But when you are financially anchored, time stretches open. You can wait without anxiety. You can pause without penalty. You can watch cycles unfold without emotional interference. This is dominance. Time, when no longer weaponized against you, becomes a tool. You allow trends to ripen. You let negotiations soften. You watch others reveal desperation while you remain still. Stillness is expensive. Only those with financial power can afford it. Debt compresses time. Wealth expands it. Look at how interest behaves. To the indebted is a predator. To the solvent, it is an employee. Same mechanism, different position. Absolute solvency flips the arrow of time. Money no longer decays under delay. It improves. You are no longer racing inflation. You are positioning ahead of it. This is why the wealthy speak less about income and more about timing. When to enter, when to hold, when to exit. They do not ask how much something costs today. They ask what it becomes over time. The collapse of financial time happens internally first. The nervous system stops bracing. the mind stops forecasting disaster. The body stops reacting to dates, notices, and countdowns. You begin to feel spacious, and in that space, better decisions emerge naturally. You stop forcing outcomes. You stop chasing momentum. You stop mistaking movement for progress. You allow capital to do what it always wanted to do, accumulate quietly. Markets favor those who are not rushed. Negotiations tilt toward those who can walk away. Opportunities reveal themselves to those who are not hunting. This is not passivity. It is gravitational authority. When time stops bullying you, money starts listening. You realize something shocking. Most financial mistakes were never about intelligence. They were about pressure. Remove pressure and clarity returns. Remove urgency and leverage appears. Remove fear and timing sharpens. This is why wealth feels inevitable once entered. Because nothing is working against you anymore. Time has switched sides, and when time aligns with you, debt dissolves naturally, not through struggle, but through irrelevance. You are no longer catching up. You are setting pace. This is the moment the game changes. There is a hidden leash almost everyone wears, and it is not attached to money itself. It is attached to permission, the need to be allowed, to qualify, to wait for approval before expanding. Scarcity is obedient by nature. It asks first. It checks rules. It looks for signs that it is safe to move. Wealth does none of this. The wealthy mind does not ask permission from banks, employers, systems, or timing. It assumes authority first and lets structures reorganize afterward. This is not rebellion. It is precedence. Notice how most people approach money. They wait for raises. They wait for validation. They wait for someone else to decide they are ready. That waiting is not patience. It is submission. Financial power begins the instant you revoke the belief that someone else must greenlight your expansion. Markets do not grant permission, they respond to assertion. Capital does not ask who deserves it, it moves toward who expects it. The permission-based mind says, if I'm good enough, maybe I'll receive more. The wealth-based mind says, more is normal, I am adjusting capacity. This shift is subtle and absolute. Once permission collapses internally, entire categories of limitation disappear. You stop justifying purchases. You stop over-explaining ambition. You stop shrinking ideas to make them palatable. You do not need consensus to command capital. You need coherence. Debt thrives in permission-based psychology because debt feels like borrowed existence, borrowed time, borrowed dignity. But absolute solvency is rooted in self-authorization. You decide what scale you operate on. You decide what numbers are natural. You decide what level of access is expected. Others sense this immediately, not consciously but somatically. People defer to those who do not seek approval. Institutions bend to those who move as if alignment is assumed. Money flows toward those who treat it as cooperative, not superior. This is why the wealthy rarely ask, will this work? They ask, how far does this go? Permission thinking keeps goals small enough to be safe. Wealth thinking makes safety irrelevant. Once this substate locks in, hesitation evaporates. Not because risk disappears, but because identity stabilizes. You no longer feel like an outsider to capital. You feel like its point of origin. From this position, debt looks strange, not scary, just unnecessary. Why borrow belief in yourself when certainty is already installed? The end of financial permission is quiet. There is no announcement, no dramatic confrontation, just a calm internal decision. I move first. And once you do, money follows. Before money moves, the body decides. This is the layer almost no one sees, yet it governs everything. Not strategy, not intelligence, not even opportunity. Regulation. The nervous system trained in scarcity is always braced. Microtension lives in the jaw, the chest, the stomach. The body expects interruption, loss, surprise expense. So even when capital appears, it cannot stay. Money does not remain where the system is unstable. This is why sudden gains vanish for most people. The numbers rise, but the body panics. Spending accelerates, risk increases, mistakes multiply. Not because of greed, but because the system is trying to return to what feels familiar. Market dominance requires a calm body. The wealthy nervous system is unreactive, not numb, neutral. A bill does not spike adrenaline. A market dip does not constrict breath. A large transfer does not create euphoria. Everything passes through without disturbance. This is power. When your physiology no longer flinches at scale, scale becomes sustainable. Massive capital demands a wide internal container. If the body tightens, money leaks. Notice how predators behave in nature. Still, unrushed, efficient. Markets reward the same posture. The regulated nervous system does not chase. It waits. It does not overcorrect. It adjusts. This is why the wealthy appear lucky. Their decisions are clean because they are not rushed by sensation. Scarcity lives in reactivity. Wealth lives in response. When stress leaves the body, clarity sharpens. You hear leverage in conversations. You feel timing intuitively. You sense when to move and when not to. This is not intuition as mysticism. It is perception without interference. Debt hijacks the nervous system. It keeps the body in mild threat mode, always alert, always preparing. Remove the threat, and intelligence returns. Absolute solvency feels like internal quiet, a long exhale that never fully ends. From this state, market dominance is inevitable. Because markets are emotional and you are not. Capital flows toward calm command. Money trusts the steady hand. When your body learns that it is safe at higher numbers, those numbers stop feeling high. They become normal, and whatever feels normal becomes permanent. This is the final gate most never cross. Not mindset, not belief, capacity. Once the nervous system upgrades, money has finally found a home. Wealth is never chaotic. It is a structure first built in consciousness, then mirrored in the world. Most people see money as numbers, transactions, or bills, but that is the surface. Beneath it lies an architecture, silent, invisible, yet omnipotent. Imagine walking through a city that exists only in thought. Every street aligns with intention. Every building rises in proportion to expectation. Traffic flows smoothly because the engineer controls nothing physically, only internally. This is how liquid wealth organizes. Your bank account is not a ledger, it is a blueprint of your consciousness. Every number, every balance, every ledger entry is a brick in that architecture. Debt appears only where the design is incomplete, where assumption falters, where belief hesitates. When you occupy full identity, the architecture solidifies. The wealthy live inside this invisible city. They navigate with precision. Every decision is guided by internal plans, not external pressures. Liquidity is not chased. It is assumed, distributed, and maintained. The absence of debt is merely the symptom of coherent structure. Markets respond to this invisible architecture before any transaction occurs. Institutions feel the alignment even before your balance reflects it. Your internal design radiates outward, bending circumstances, shaping outcomes. There is no struggle because there is no structural friction. Everything fits, everything flows, everything responds. Notice the difference from ordinary financial behavior. Most people hammer at walls that are not theirs to move. They seek leaks to plug, numbers to raise, favors to negotiate. But the wealthy do not repair. They construct. They inhabit a space where money circulates naturally, unforced, inevitable. The substate here is architectural certainty. Your consciousness becomes the engineer of outcomes. Every act is measured. Every position preemptive. Every risk calculated in alignment with internal stability, not external panic. This invisible architecture also dictates time, influence, and leverage. Financial movements that seem sudden are simply the result of structures fully formed in advance. Debt cannot find a foothold in a system designed with permanence in mind. Liquidity cannot resist an organized channel. Capital gravitates to coherence like water running down a slope. To inhabit this substate is to think in permanency, not episodically, not opportunistically, but continuously. Every decision, every purchase, every investment is a reflection of an internal blueprint that anticipates and commands the flow of money. Step into this space fully. Feel the calm of structure. Sense the inevitability of your positions. Notice that markets pause, adjust, and yield to the presence of someone who moves within invisible architecture. This is not belief. It is built certainty. And when your inner world is constructed without gaps, your external world begins to mirror it. Fluidly, silently, powerfully. Debt is no longer a problem. It is an irrelevance. A relic that cannot exist where foundation and expectation are aligned. The architecture of liquid wealth is complete. And now nothing, no interruption, no outside force, no hesitation can destabilize it. This is the invisible city the wealthy inhabit. Silent, unassailable, absolute, and it is entirely yours to command. Wealth is not a thing, it is a force, a field, a presence that attracts, organizes, and multiplies. Imagine standing in a space where everything you want bends naturally toward you, not because you ask, not because you chase, but because the field itself aligns with your internal frequency. This is the magnetic field of capital. The poor and indebted believe money must be pulled. They push, they struggle, they negotiate desperately, but the wealthy do not pull. They radiate alignment, and money moves as if drawn by gravity. This field is invisible to most, yet it is profoundly physical. You can feel it in your chest, in your limbs, in the way decisions unfold. It is calm, yet relentless, silent, yet unmistakable. It does not bend for fear. It does not falter for doubt. Every thought, every word, every expectation contributes to the field. Debt weakens it. Indecision dissipates it. Clarity strengthens it. Absolute certainty amplifies it exponentially. What if every investment, every transaction, every financial move you make did not require effort? What if your internal state alone set the conditions for success? This is the reality inside the magnetic field of capital. Liquidity flows. Opportunities appear. Markets respond. Feel how this changes perception. Interest rates, balance sheets, negotiations, even competition, they are no longer obstacles. They are signals. They move to reveal alignment, not to obstruct you. Notice how ordinary financial behavior collapses in the presence of this field. Rushed decisions, desperation, and scarcity thinking cannot penetrate it. The nervous system relaxes. Clarity sharpens. Leverage becomes obvious. This substate is magnetic certainty. You no longer need to convince the world. You command through presence. Money, capital, market influence, all respond to this silent authority. It is not external manipulation, it is internal declaration. The world organizes around what you occupy, not what you beg for. Debt cannot survive here. It cannot attach to a system where authority is inherent. Obligation has nowhere to settle. Financial scarcity becomes irrelevant. Step into this field fully. Breathe it in. Sense the alignment vibrating through your being. Notice how effortless expansion feels. Notice how invisible structures rearrange themselves to accommodate you. This is the magnetic field of capital. It is the unseen law behind all liquid wealth. And once internalized, it guarantees that whatever belongs to you will find its way, naturally, inevitably, permanently. There is a place beneath desire, beyond calculation, where money ceases to be outside. A place where debt cannot exist and scarcity is meaningless. This is the 0 point of financial identity. Most people operate far above it. They chase numbers. They plan, strategize, scramble, negotiate. Their identity is fragmented, half fear, half hope, and entirely reactive. The world reacts to them because they have not rooted themselves in certainty. The wealthy, by contrast, operate from zero, not zero as in nothing. Zero as in pure assumption. A field where all financial forms, capital, liquidity, opportunity, are already present. From this point, everything external becomes reflection, not cause. Notice the paradox. The moment you exist fully in this 0 point, debt dissolves naturally, not through repayment, avoidance, or effort, but because the state you occupy leaves no space for lack. The nervous system relaxes, decision-making becomes instantaneous, leverage becomes obvious. At 0, the mind no longer asks, "How will I survive?" It asks, "What will I command next?" There is no bargaining with reality, no pleading for returns, no compromise with limitation. This is why the wealthy never feel scarcity internally, even when numbers fluctuate externally. Because the point of reference is not the bank balance, but the identity that commands it. Your financial self does not depend on variable conditions. It anchors money permanently. 0 is also magnetic. Debt cannot attach to a state where certainty is absolute. Financial obligations weaken and vanish. Liquidity flows in patterns that confirm internal assumption. Markets, banks, collaborators, all align silently. Feel it now. The absence of fear, the absence of hesitation, the calm authority that does not ask permission. This is the internal climate where massive capital thrives. The outer world becomes predictable because your inner world is aligned. At this substate, every number, every asset, every opportunity is already accounted for internally. You do not scramble. You do not overreach. You simply extend presence and the external reflects it. Debt was never real. It existed only above 0, in fragmented identity, in negotiation with external conditions. Step into 0 and all obligation becomes irrelevant. All scarcity evaporates. All capital moves to obey the identity you occupy. This is the source code of liquid wealth, the foundation beneath markets, the calm center around which absolute solvency orbits. And once entered, it cannot be unentered. Because zero is not borrowed. Zero is assumed. Zero is you. Wealth is not static. It is movement. Not in the sense of numbers ticking, not in the sense of transactions recorded, but in the pulse, the living rhythm that money carries when aligned with consciousness. Notice how debt disrupts rhythm. Payments arrive like hammers. Obligations clamp the tempo. The body, the mind, the spirit tighten. Time feels compressed, decisions feel urgent, and opportunity appears chaotic. Now imagine money flowing like a river across your internal landscape. No friction, no hesitation, no leaks. Every transfer, every investment, every opportunity pulses in sync with your internal tempo. This is the rhythm of financial flow. The wealthy inhabit this rhythm unconsciously, yet absolutely. It is not effort. It is not luck. It is alignment. Liquidity moves because they are in time, not because they chase it. Debt dissolves because the pulse leaves no gap for obligation to attach. What does this feel like? A notification appears and there is no jolt. An expense arises and the system absorbs it effortlessly. A market opportunity surfaces and your internal timing matches it perfectly. Nothing is missed, nothing is forced, nothing lags. This rhythm is sensory, not imagined. It can be felt in posture, in breathing, in the effortless sweep of decisions. The body stops rushing, the mind stops calculating, the nervous system stops anticipating disaster. When rhythm dominates, money obeys, not partially, not occasionally, completely. Liquidity becomes predictable, not because of control, but because internal timing orchestrates all movements. Capital finds you, not by chance, but by resonance. Debt cannot exist in resonance. Scarcity cannot attach to flow. Markets themselves recognize rhythmic authority. Interest, leverage, investment, returns, all respond to the tempo you occupy internally. You do not negotiate with systems. You pulse, and they align. Step into it fully. Notice the quiet satisfaction in each transaction. Notice how external pressure loses urgency. Notice how internal clarity dictates timing automatically. Your bank account, your investments, your capital, they all move like a living organism, synchronized with your presence. The rhythm of financial flow is subtle yet decisive. It is not learned, it is inhabited. It is internalized certainty expressed through timing. When you live in this rhythm, debt is irrelevant. Obligation is irrelevant. Everything that belongs to you arrives in harmony. Everything that does not align naturally falls away. This is not theory. It is experience. A pulse you enter once and never leave. And from this pulse, absolute solvency, liquid wealth, and market dominance emerge naturally. Wealth is not carried in the hands, it is anchored in presence. Presence is the silent weight that pulls opportunity, capital, and liquidity toward you, effortlessly. Most operate as if money is a rope to be climbed. Debt feels like a boulder pressing down. Obligations pull at the nervous system. Every action is measured, every decision tentative, every outcome feared. The wealthy understand a different law. Financial presence creates gravity. You do not chase, you do not beg, you do not plead. You simply occupy a state that draws resources naturally. Feel the difference in posture. A man braced against debt leans forward, tight, reactive. A man rooted in capital stands erect, relaxed, immovable. The world orients itself around the latter. This is not symbolic, it is physics. Markets respond to internal gravity before external numbers appear. Negotiations tilt. Opportunities accelerate. Offers appear unprompted. Debt cannot cling to those who radiate presence. Obligations lose tension. Liquidity flows freely because it recognizes alignment, not effort. Presence is expressed in thought, speech, and action. Every internal declaration, every silent expectation, every calm assumption reinforces it. It is the pulse beneath all strategy, the foundation beneath all transactions, the hidden architecture that no ledger can capture. The poor wait for conditions to validate them. The wealthy validate conditions with presence. Markets, banks, colleagues, and contracts all respond before a word is spoken. Feel the weight of this truth in the chest. Notice how urgency evaporates. Notice how clarity sharpens. Notice how internal stability organizes external outcomes without struggle. Debt is powerless here. Scarcity cannot anchor itself in a gravitational field. Money moves toward the source of stability. Liquidity aligns naturally with the presence of certainty. Step fully into this state. Stand, breathe, occupy the space as if capital must obey. It does. And once your gravitational field is established, nothing, not bills, not competition, not markets, can resist. This is the weight the wealthy carry silently. It is unseen, untouchable, absolute. It is the gravity of financial presence. Wealth is chemical before it is numerical. Before the account balance, before the contract, before the asset, it exists as a reaction inside the body. A blend of focus, calm, expectation, and identity that triggers the environment to comply. Debt poisons this chemistry. Fear creates cortisol. Urgency spikes adrenaline. Scarcity floods the bloodstream with tension. Every decision is impaired, every opportunity misread. Financial power, by contrast, is a state of internal balance. The mind releases dopamine in proportion to confidence, not circumstance. The body signals readiness. The nervous system aligns with scale. This is why the wealthy seem unshakable even when numbers fluctuate. Notice how ordinary financial behavior disrupts chemistry. Late payments trigger panic. Unexpected expenses trigger defensiveness. Market shifts trigger hesitation. Now imagine chemistry working in reverse. Your physiology precedes outcomes. Internal signals calibrate your presence, your decisions, your leverage. Capital moves toward the reaction you maintain, not the calculation you chase. The wealthy live in this chemical state continuously. It is not effort, it is not mind over matter. It is matter in agreement with mind. Liquidity flows because your body signals abundance. Debt cannot attach to someone whose chemistry broadcasts certainty. Scarcity cannot nest where neural pathways pulse with expectation. Feel it now. The heart does not race at the sight of expense. The chest does not tighten at the arrival of bills. The mind does not calculate panic. Instead, every action is measured, precise, inevitable. This chemistry is invisible but powerful. It is the substrate beneath strategy, the signal beneath negotiation, the current beneath transactions. Step fully into it. Let internal reactions align with your financial assumptions. Notice how effortless decisions become. Notice how opportunity seeks you rather than the reverse. Notice how external numbers obey internal states. Debt dissolves chemically. Scarcity evaporates neurologically. Liquidity arrives naturally. Capital obeys the body tuned to certainty. This is the substate of chemical command, where absolute solvency is not an aspiration, it is a bodily fact. And once entered, the world adjusts to your internal reaction automatically. There is a zone beyond calculation, beyond strategy, where money simply responds. Not because of contracts, negotiation, or leverage, but because your being radiates solvency. Most people perceive wealth as numbers in a ledger, figures that must be earned, tracked, and defended. They calculate, hedge, worry, and negotiate endlessly, never realizing the invisible rules of the game. Absolute solvency is not arithmetic. It is a field, an internal climate that signals to every aspect of reality. I am fully funded. I am untouchable. I am aligned. Step into this field. Feel how debt instantly loses tension. Notice how scarcity can no longer hold space around you. Liquidity flows toward you effortlessly, naturally, because your internal state commands it. Markets, banks, opportunities, collaborators, they respond first to presence, then to numbers. When you inhabit this field, numbers are reflections, not determinants. No market dip, no unexpected expense, no competition can destabilize the certainty within. The wealthy do not panic. They do not scramble. They do not hedge emotionally. They move from solvency, not toward it. This field has a sensory reality. It is felt in posture, breath, pulse, and nervous system. The body rests in calm authority. The mind moves with clarity. Decisions emerge easily. Leverage appears naturally. Time bends in favor of action. Debt cannot exist in this zone. Obligation becomes irrelevant. Scarcity evaporates. Capital recognizes the source of command and aligns. Notice how opportunities appear unprompted. Notice how negotiations resolve effortlessly. Notice how your internal assurance attracts the flow of money. This is not theory, it is experience. It is absolute solvency, fully internalized. Once this field is entered, the external world follows automatically. Not reluctantly, but naturally, inevitably, permanently. Step fully into this field. Occupy it continuously. Command it silently. And watch how debt, once a shadow over your life, disappears entirely. Because the field of absolute solvency is stronger than any obligation, stronger than any external condition. Money is obedient to alignment long before it is obedient to action. The wealthy know this. They do not chase currency. They cultivate internal resonance, and the world mirrors it. Notice how ordinary thinking keeps people enslaved to numbers. They calculate endlessly, negotiate frantically, and pleads subconsciously with life itself. Debt thrives here. It is a symptom of misalignment. Scarcity feels permanent because internal accord is absent. Inner alignment is the currency that precedes all external money. It is the state in which every choice, every expectation, every assumption is coherent. From this state, opportunities present themselves naturally. Liquidity flows. Capital multiplies. Debt dissipates. Imagine standing in a room, fully aligned, fully calibrated, fully coherent. Nothing external can disturb you. A bill arrives, an expense appears, a market shifts, and still your internal state radiates certainty. This is the currency of inner alignment. It is invisible, yet tangible. It is more valuable than any bank balance. It is more powerful than leverage. It organizes every financial interaction automatically. Observe how the wealthy use this currency. They do not argue with money. They do not negotiate with circumstances. They occupy alignment and let the flow respond. Every transaction, every investment, every transfer is a reflection of internal harmony. Debt cannot attach to coherence. Scarcity cannot survive in the presence of internal alignment. Markets bend. Opportunities accelerate. Liquidity manifests without effort. Step fully into it now. Feel your internal landscape stabilize. Notice how decisions become clear, effortless, inevitable. Notice how the world begins to mirror the state you occupy. This is not aspiration. It is mechanical. A law beyond strategy, beyond negotiation. The currency of inner alignment is your foundation, and once inhabited, money follows naturally, completely, permanently. Wealth is not visible at first glance. It is not the number in the ledger, the balance on the screen, or the assets listed on paper. It is mechanical, operating silently, invisibly, beneath the surface of perception. Debt exists because most people ignore the mechanics. They see numbers and assume scarcity. They see obligations and assume limitation. They do not perceive the underlying laws that move capital effortlessly. The wealthy perceive differently. They see patterns, flows, and alignments. They understand that money obeys the internal operator before obeying external conditions. Liquidity, leverage, opportunity, all are gears in a system that responds to consciousness. Imagine a machine built perfectly, each cog aligned to intention. Push a lever incorrectly, and chaos erupts. Push it with understanding, and the machine hums, generating output effortlessly. This is capital. This is the unseen mechanism behind liquid wealth. The substate here is mechanical comprehension. Your mind internalizes the processes that most ignore. Debt becomes irrelevant because you see where it attaches, and you remove the attachment internally first. Scarcity dissolves because you know the system is unlimited when operated correctly. Notice how the wealthy act. They do not plead with markets. They do not beg for liquidity. They do not overcompensate with frantic effort. They engage the system as it was designed to operate, and results follow inevitably. This is not strategy alone. It is internal mechanics applied consistently. Every transaction, every investment, every negotiation follows the rules of this internal design. No panic, no pressure, no desperation, just precise, effortless movement. Step into this substate. Feel the gears align. Feel the rhythm of money functioning perfectly around you. Every opportunity, every return, every asset responds to the operator within. Debt, delay, limitation. None can survive this understanding. The unseen mechanics of capital is not learned from schools or books. It is inhabited. It is felt, operated, and assumed. And once mastered internally, external money behaves exactly as it must. Fluid, abundant, obedient, permanent. There is a moment that few ever notice, a quiet before numbers move, a stillness before capital obeys. It is not external. It is internal, a field where debt loses its weight and scarcity fades naturally. Most people act constantly. They check balances, they calculate returns, they panic at notifications, they negotiate with fear. And in this noise, money cannot move efficiently. The wealthy, by contrast, inhabit silence. Not idle silence, not avoidance, but full internal stillness. Every expectation, every assumption, every desire is settled. Every nerve, every thought, every pulse is calm, coherent, aligned. This is the substate of pre-expansion clarity. Nothing external is needed. No transaction triggers it. No market validates it. It exists before any action. In this silence, debt dissolves. It cannot attach to a calm system. Scarcity cannot find a foothold in someone who is internally undisturbed. Liquidity flows naturally toward stillness, following the path of least resistance, your aligned presence. Notice how opportunities appear unbidden in this quiet. They arrive silently, without alarm or struggle. Conversations bend. Investments reveal themselves. Returns organize effortlessly. The silence before liquid wealth is not passive. It is preparation. It is the internal calibration that ensures every financial movement aligns perfectly with expectation. It is the state from which absolute solvency flows without interruption. Step into it fully. Feel the nervous system relax. Notice how the mind stops negotiating with lack. Notice how internal authority radiates outward. Notice how debt, obligation, and scarcity fade automatically. This is the quiet engine of market dominance. It is unobservable to others, yet it moves everything. And once you inhabit this silence, money, massive capital, liquid wealth, absolute solvency, follows inevitably, permanently, completely. Wealth is flexible before it is fixed. It stretches, contracts, and bends according to the expectation you hold internally. Most people experience money as rigid, finite, heavy, constraining. Debt feels permanent. Scarcity feels inevitable. Opportunities seem distant, rare, and random. But the wealthy understand a different principle. Financial expectation is elastic. It expands to accommodate belief. It contracts where doubt resides. Capital, liquidity, and opportunity do not merely obey numbers. They obey the assumed boundary of your consciousness. Notice how ordinary thought limits outcomes. I cannot afford this shrinks space. I will pay later tightens the internal container. I hope it works shortens leverage. Expectation is not passive. It stretches the field of possibility before any transaction occurs. It creates volume where numbers can appear. It determines flow before external conditions signal yes. The substate here is elastic certainty. You assume solvency and the world conforms. You expand expectation and capital stretches to meet it. Debt is irrelevant because the internal volume of belief exceeds any external claim. Feel it now. Notice how perception changes. Every number, every opportunity, every investment reacts to the width of expectation rather than the rigidity of circumstance. Notice how ease emerges. Notice how leverage appears naturally. Notice how scarcity collapses automatically. Elasticity allows you to absorb fluctuations without panic. Market shifts, delayed payments, or sudden expenses do not contract your system. Liquidity stretches to fill the assumed space. Debt cannot attach to a system that holds infinite internal room. Step fully into this state. Breathe expectation wide. Hold solvency as a living field. Observe how external numbers stretch in response. Observe how opportunities arrive effortlessly. This is the law of financial elasticity. The wealthy live inside it continuously. The internal assumption expands first, and external capital simply stretches to obey, effortlessly, permanently, inevitably. Wealth has a sound, not audible in the conventional sense, but felt in the nervous system, in posture, in the rhythm of breath, in the weight of expectation. Debt is discord. Scarcity is static. Financial power is resonance. Notice how most people approach money. They fret over balances, they scramble over deadlines, they panic at opportunities that require action. Everything vibrates with tension. Everything hums with resistance. The wealthy, by contrast, inhabit resonance. Every intention, every expectation, every assumption vibrates at the frequency of solvency. Liquidity flows, capital arranges itself, debt becomes irrelevant. This is the substate of auditory alignment. Your internal system is tuned. The slightest disturbance, a sudden expense, a market shift, a delayed transfer is absorbed, filtered, neutralized. Nothing external creates chaos internally. Nothing threatens flow. Listen carefully. The sound is not in the world. It is in the body. A calm hum beneath the chest, a quiet certainty in the diaphragm, a pulse in the mind that says everything belongs here. Markets, banks, opportunities, they respond first to resonance, then to numbers. Negotiations tilt. Investments reveal themselves. Offers appear silently, naturally, without force. Debt cannot survive resonance. Scarcity cannot attach to harmonic presence. Liquidity follows vibration, not calculation. Massive capital obeys the internal hum of expectation. Step fully into it now. Feel the vibration in your body. Notice the effortless flow of money around you. Notice how opportunities arrive in rhythm. Notice how debt, obligation, and limitation fade automatically. The sound of money obeying is subtle yet decisive. It is a field you enter internally. It is a law. It is absolute and unassailable. And once you inhabit it, all capital, all liquidity, all abundance moves naturally, permanently, and in harmony with your presence. Wealth is not random. It is patterned, structured, arranged according to invisible laws that most never perceive. Debt occupies irregular space, scarcity twists corners, but financial power moves in perfect geometry. Imagine a lattice, a grid, a network of capital flows. Each node aligns with intention. Each connection carries energy. Liquidity travels along predictable channels, bending only where coherence exists. Chaos cannot survive in a system this precise. Most people handle money like clay. Soft, pliable, endlessly reshaped by circumstance. They chase, they negotiate, they hope. They see only the surface. They do not perceive the internal design. The wealthy perceive shape, proportion, and balance. Every asset, every account, every investment occupies a deliberate space. Every transaction completes a line, an angle, a vector of influence. Debt cannot attach to symmetry. Scarcity cannot cling to form. Liquidity moves along defined paths toward coherent nodes. This is the substate of structural mastery. The body, the mind, the nervous system, all aligned with internal architecture. Every action flows naturally from this geometry. Markets respond to alignment before calculation. Opportunities appear where space has been deliberately created. Notice the precision in your own presence. Posture, breath, internal focus, they echo the lattice of wealth internally. Notice how decisions become effortless, inevitable, mathematically coherent. Notice how external capital conforms to the shape you occupy. Step fully into this substate. Visualize the framework of your finances as a perfect structure. Observe how debt dissolves. Observe how scarcity collapses. Observe how liquidity flows naturally along invisible light perfect channels. The geometry of liquid wealth is not learned, it is inhabited. Once internalized, money obeys the lines, angles, and vectors you occupy. Absolute solvency, market dominance, and massive capital follow the architecture. And nothing, no chaos, no delay, no limitation, can ever distort the shape you hold. Wealth is assumed before it is ever earned. It is inhabited before it appears externally. It is identity first, numbers second, outcomes last. Debt disappears the moment assumption replaces fear. Scarcity evaporates when expectation becomes reality internally. The final substate, the culmination of all others, is absolute assumption. Here, money, capital, and opportunity obey not because of effort, negotiation, or timing, but because your consciousness has declared, it is mine. No outside validation is needed. No permission is required. No struggle remains. Most people approach wealth as a goal. They beg for numbers. They negotiate for leverage. They chase outcomes. They ask, will this happen for me? The wealthy do not ask, they assume. They inhabit the state of solvency, abundance, and liquidity fully and continuously. They do not hope. They do not strategize. They exist as the embodiment of what they claim. Notice how external reality responds. Markets bend. Banks comply. Investments appear. Opportunities accelerate. Debt cannot attach. Scarcity cannot survive. Absolute assumption is identity locked in permanence. Numbers are reflections, not determinants. Capital obeys presence, not persuasion. Liquidity flows naturally, effortlessly, inevitably. Feel it now. Your internal state declares, I am financially whole. Every nerve, every thought, every pulse aligns with this declaration. No fear intrudes. No hesitation lingers. No outside force can reverse it. This is the summit of the psychological mechanics of money. This is where debt is revealed as illusion. This is where liquid wealth, massive capital, and absolute solvency are not just possible, they are permanent fact. Step fully into it. Occupy it silently, consistently, completely. The world rearranges, money moves, opportunities align, and the absolute assumption of wealth becomes your lived reality, unshakable, unyielding, eternal.